All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe Imbriano. We are at the Hermosa Beach City Council meeting right now. It's been a very long day, but what we have going on is an agenda item with the Hermosa Beach City Council. We're here outside right now. They're going to be discussing an agenda item to kind of pave the way for wireless sighting and the 5G millimeter wave kill grid that's coming. And there really is a lot you can still do about this. But what I'm here to tell you right now, folks, is that we've got major problems, okay? Because nobody's aware of just how serious this is and nobody's paying attention to what's going on. I'm here outside the council chambers right now. You can see this is the city council chambers. And I'm about to go in, so I'm going to flip this camera around and I'm going to ask that you be patient. I'm going to present to these people and enter into the public record the fact that the 5G systems are a weapons system, folks. And I'm going to enter this into the public record tonight. I've done this before. But what has to happen is people need to understand that we need to hold these elected representatives accountable. The city of Hermosa Beach is a beach community in Southern California, and if these telecom companies have their way, they're going to put these transmitters all over the place, and this is a very densely populated area, and people are going to have these things literally right outside their bedroom windows, beaming millimeter waves into their homes, folks. This is a very serious matter. You know, I don't like spending time away from my family doing this stuff. You know, I would much rather be home having dinner after working all day, but this is very serious, folks. You do not understand. Unless we stop this, it is going to be the end of life as we know it. These systems have the ability to induce a myriad of illness and a host of symptoms that will be blamed on a pathogenic outbreak that will result in forced vaccinations. This is an electronic voodoo doll, folks. 5G is bad news. It's deadly. They've known for 40 years, folks. I've got studies right here from 40 years ago from the Soviet Union. These are CIA declassified documents talking about what is going on with this stuff. And I know the Lord Jesus Christ is with me. I know He is. And that's why I'm here, folks. All right, I'm going to try to go into this meeting. I may not be able to talk, but you'll hear me when I do. I don't know exactly when this is going to be the time. Okay, I don't think it's time yet to go in. Sounds like they're just getting the general public comment right now. Okay, I'm just outside right now, and I want to go into, once again, I'm going to read this, because I'll have more time to read this to you. This is a declassified study from the CIA, folks, and this was done in Kiev, Russia, in 1977, folks. Listen to this. All right. Morphological, functional, and biochemical studies conducted in humans and animals revealed that millimeter waves cause changes in the body manifested in structural alterations in the skin and internal organs, qualitative and quantitative changes of the blood and bone marrow composition, and changes of the conditioned reflex activity, tissue respiration activity of enzymes participating in the processes of tissue respiration and nucleic metabolism. The degree of unfavorable effect of millimeter waves depended on the duration or the irradiation and individual characteristics of the organism. This stuff screws you up, folks. The ubiquitous propagation of radio waves, radio broadcasting, and television is contributing to the appearance of a new physical factor, electromagnetic waves of radio frequency range. And in recent years, and they're talking back in the 70s, folks, in recent years it has been established that radio waves of different ranges have an unfavorable influence on the organism. And this is back in 1977, and they're citing the literature data here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 7 or 8 studies. Okay, let me just hear what they're saying here. I don't want
to. All right, so just to clarify, City Manager, at this time, we are going to start with the cards that have been submitted. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Okay, the first one I have here is from Jake, right?
You know, they may be calling me in. I don't know.
These names correctly.
All right. I think they're just on general public comment.
I'm the Summit member, Field representative for Hermosa Beach.
I need you to stick with me, folks.
From our office, we're in a new legislative session. So far,
Just hear what they're talking about.
Assembly Bill 39.
Okay, yeah, this is non-agenda stuff.
2808
So-
from the prior session, and it's introduced to establish new K through 12 school funding.
Can you guys hear me okay?
An approximate increase of about $35 billion. We've also received our.
Hey, leave the haircut alone, guys. Come on. You know what? The haircut's the least of my priorities, all right?
Research. We'll also continue to serve.
All right, so let's talk about this. The literature that we've got here, there's at least 5 or 6 studies back in the 70s when this was done in the 70s. You guys hear me over the background? Can you guys hear me over the background?
And Veterans Affairs.
All right, good.
So lastly, we want to.
All right, so the literature data
We are going to be hosting
testifies that long stays in conditions of the effective radio waves in the millimeter waves and the centimeter range leads to changes in the function of the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, and other systems of the organism, with the development of a characteristic complex of symptoms which permits speaking of a special nosological form of disease, radio wave disease. This is back in 1973 they were talking about this, folks. However, in the literature, there's almost no information about the biological effect of radio frequencies of the millimeter range, although that range is widely used in technology, and the question of its biological activity has acquired special urgency. This was in 1977, folks. They're wanting to put millimeter waves everywhere. 41 years ago, they were studying this. The goal of this investigation consisted in study of the physiological and biochemical processes lying at the basis of the changes which occur in animals as a result of the effect of radio waves in a range of 5 to 8 millimeters at the density flow power of 1 milliwatt per centimeter squared. This is about the frequency, this is right around 60 gigahertz, 50 to 80 gigahertz, and this is about the power density they're going to be putting out in these antennas and these devices when 5G is rolled out and when WIGIG is rolled out.
And then at 5 o'clock is our...
The goal of this present investigation consists of physiological and biological process. Okay, the investigations were conducted on rats of the Wistar line and mice of the CBA line, irradiated for 15 minutes a day in the course of 60 days in a volume resonator of an experimental installation working on the basis of a type 0V-12 generator. The study of morphological, functional, and biochemical indicators which play an essential role in the formation of the reactions of the organisms disclosed various disorders in the experimental animals. As is known, the energy of millimeter waves, because of its weak penetrating ability, is absorbed primarily and mainly by the skin, and our investigations have shown that in the skin of irradiated animals, deformation of the receptor apparatus and well-expressed changes of a reactive character were observed. In the skin layer, properly speaking, appeared bunches of nerve fibers with hypertrophy of a portion of the fiber and sections with demyelination. Did you hear that? Demyelination of the nerves of the skin. In the dermis, among the collagen fibers, were small trunks of various thickness, the neural conductors of which were fragmented in separate cases, and phenomena of demyelination were observed in the surface layers. This is what 5G can do. This is what millimeter wave radiation can do. This is what they're proposing to put everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. This is what is before this city council in Hermosa Beach tonight. As the results of histomorphological analysis showed in the functionality, active structures of tissue of the myocardium, liver, kidneys, and spleen disorders of the hemodynamics were established with disruption of permeability of the vesicular membranes, the appearance of micronecroses, and subsequent tissue dystrophy. Moreover, qualitative and quantitative shifts were revealed in the erythrocytic and leukocytic composition of the blood of irradiated animals, indicating suppression of the hemopoietic function of the bone marrow and lymphatic system. Noted in the composition of the red blood cell, noted in the composition of the red blood was eosinophilia, neutrophilia, and lymphopenia, and lowering of the hemoglobin level and reduction of the number of erythrocytes were observed, which was determined to a considerable degree by the retention of erythrocytes in the bone marrow. In the latter occurred an increase of the number of erythrocytic cells and disease cells of the leukoblastic series. Under the effect of millimeter waves of low intensity, the degree of affection depends on the general condition of the organism. A characteristic feature of the biological effect of radio waves was changes of the state of various sections of the central and vegetative nervous systems. You guys hear me okay?
We are supposed to rely.
By the way, Trump's pushing 5G. So tonight, as he's putting up the wall to keep you locked in the Hunger Games prison, he's pushing for this 5G to go in all over the place, folks.
But who is still involved in the.
As a result of investigations conducted by us on animals irradiated with millimeter waves, disorders of the condition reflex activity have been established.
The community during the 2016 Measure S bond campaign by our schools.
5G is mind control and death, folks. As a result of the investigations conducted by us on animals irradiated with millimeter waves, disorders of condition reflex activity have been established. Weakening of the stimulatory process, reduction of the size of latent period in response to different conditions stimuli, light, noise, and pain, and disinhibition or differentiation reactions. See if they're calling me yet.
Hi, my name is Chris Miller. I did have a good fortune.
They're still going on public
being
comments
raised
in
here,
it.
but educated in Hermosa.
As a result of investigation conducted by us
This was here for 45 years. I
on
sent
animals,
you all a
once
letter
again,
yesterday, with
disorders
most
of the
my
stimulatory
concerns about plan on the
and
air.
inhibitory processes displayed in animals during the repeated effects of millimeter waves can be considered suppression of the function of the central nervous system. Once again, I'm going to repeat this. Disorders of the stimulatory and inhibitory processes displayed in animals during repeated effects of millimeter radio waves can be considered suppression of the function of the central nervous system, although the developed inhibition can be linked with protectocompensatory reaction of the organism in response to radiation. This 5G, these millimeter waves affect the central nervous system, ladies and gentlemen. You need to get the likes up on this. Hit the like button on this. Hit the thumbs up. In the blood plasma of irradiated animals, the content of 17-oxycorticosteroids increased 2.4 per mil. Some numbers here. Okay, so this stuff messes with the blood plasma. I can't make that out.
School children who were paralyzed and killed on these streets in Hermosa Beach. One directly in front of the Kiwanis Club.
The rats irradiated by millimeter waves.
Across the street on Ardmore.
The ascorbic acid level in their blood dropped. The functional changes established in the content of 17 cc's in the blood plasma and ascorbic acid in the adrenal cortex of irradiated animals indicate the influence of millimeter radio waves on the general components of the hypothalamus hypophysis system, the adrenal glands, with involvement of a number of humoral components. Folks, this stuff is affecting brain chemistry. It's affecting the central nervous system.
Half the size of any other school in the district.
Can you guys hear me okay? Get the thumbs up on this, okay? Get the thumbs up on this. All right, and I'm going to show you, these are the people on the city council right here. This is city treasurer, city clerk, council member, mayor pro tem, and mayor.
Mitigation measures that are on-site and within their
I wish they'd
operational
turn that volume down.
including on-site loading and unloading, prior to relying on mitigation measures that the city use city property.
The conducted investigation showed that in the animals subjected to the effect of millimeter waves, there was a variation of the content and ratio of catecholamines in the blood. The concentration increased in the hypothalamus, the adrenaline content increased, and the noradrenaline level dropped. In the cerebral cortex, there was slight redistribution of catecholamines in the adrenal glands. The adrenal content doubled, and noradrenaline level dropped by 11% in comparison with that in unirradiated animals. The adrenaline concentration in the adrenal glands remained elevated by 60% 10 days after they stopped the irradiation. You hear this, folks? The adrenal glands, noradrenaline, catecholamines, cerebral cortex. I mean, this is all brain chemicals and neurotransmitters, folks. This stuff messes with your brain.
And so for the past almost 2 years,
Come on, get the views up. Get your friends to watch this. I drove all the way here. I haven't even gone home and had dinner, ladies and gentlemen. You think, you know, you guys want to make fun of my hair? Why don't you work a whole day and do 2 streams and deal with this, all right? I don't see anybody else in this lobby. Where is everybody? Come on. Get the word out, folks. Come on, get the likes up. Push that button and get this thing some exposure. I'm about to go in and tell these people about this stuff.
Very disappointed.
The obtained results indicate well-expressed changes of metabolism of catecholamines under the influence of millimeter waves, both in normal and in the hormonal and in the sympathetic components of the sympathetic adrenal system, and also reflect changes of the functional activity of its hormonal and mediator components. Look, folks. Here's the deal. I don't care if you're doctors. This stuff messes stuff up, okay? Anytime I say millimeter waves, replace that for 5G, all right? The main mass of the energy in tissues and organs of the animals is as known as released during the biological oxidation of organic substances, in which case the greater part of it is accumulated in the form of macroergs. The process of bioenergetics occurring mainly in the mitochondria, and this is really important, folks, because at the root of all illness is not viruses, it is not bacteria, it is not amoebas, it's not protozoas, it's mitochondrial disorder, okay? It is mitochondrial disorder. And as they talk here, occurring all of these, I'll repeat this, the main mass of the energy in tissues and organs of animal organisms, as is known, is released during the biological oxidation of organic substances, in which case the greater part of it is accumulated in the form of macroergs, and that process of bioenergetics occurring mainly in the mitochondria with the direct participation of respiratory enzymes which accomplish the terminal stage of biological oxidations are of universal importance and assure the functional activity of organs and tissues, the synthesis of proteins and nucleic acid, the formation of some new intermediate products of exchange, etc. Folks, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It is the power plant of the city. It is the key component of health. The conducted investigations showed that the irradiation of animals by millimeter waves caused changes of the processes of oxidative phosphorylation in the liver, kidneys, heart, and brain of the animals. The irradiation inhibited the oxygen consumption rate by the mitochondria of those organs in the active phosphorylating state and slowed down
Jim Lesmer, Hermosa Beach.
the irradiation. I had to wait to see if they're calling me. And that's right, folks. Oh, Jesus, in Jesus' name, Almighty God, we need your help. This is the stuff they're about to put everywhere, folks.
The last couple of years.
All right.
Unfortunately, though,
The irradiation inhibited the oxygen consumption rate by the mitochondria of those organs in the active phosphorylating state and slowed down the rate of respiration upon exhaustion of the adenine triphosphate, ATP. In the liver and kidneys of the irradiated animals, the intensity of phosphorylation decreased by 64%. The values of the respiratory controls decreased by 26 and 28% respectively, and the changes were less expressed in the heart and the brain. The established disorders of the process of conjugate oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria of irradiated animals testify to the suppression of energy exchange and can be a result of changes occurring in the electron transport chain. The expressed hypothesis was confirmed by the results of investigation and the activity of enzymes participating in the process of tissue respiration. In the mitochondria of the livers of irradiated animals, succinate dehydrogenase activity increased by 34%, and the cytochrome oxidase activity decreased by 37%. Those data testify to the destruction of the cytochrome chain. Folks, this is mitochondrial disruption and destruction.
then I was
Very essential in the system of enzyme cell energy supply is the role of ATPases regulating the process of formation and use of the energy of macroergs. The conducted investigations revealed in the mitochondria of the livers of irradiated animals an increase of ATPase activity by 63% as compared with similar indicators for the unirradiated. In that case, the liver and spleen of animals irradiated many times by millimeter waves. There was a decrease in the content of adenonucleotides by 61% and 68% respectively. Investigation of the influence of millimeter waves on the state of nucleic exchange showed that in the liver, spleen, kidneys, and lungs and heart, there was a reduction of the content of nucleic acid and suppression of the rate of thymidine and DNA and carbon-14 uridine and RNA. In comparison to the results for quantitative determination of nucleic acids, it was established that the rate of inclusion of the predecessor in RNA and its content in the organs changes less than the DNA. The change of the nucleic acids concentration was more expressed in the liver, spleen, kidneys than that of the heart and the lungs. Together with the reduction of the nucleic acids content, the quantity of acid-soluble products in the liver and spleen of irradiated animals increased by 35 and 43%, and the activity of ribonuclease and DNAs increased 50%. Under the influence of radio waves, the protein spectrum of the blood serum changed, the albumin content decreased, and the number of globulins increased, which led to the decrease of the value of the albumin globulin coefficient, and the number of free amino acids decreased by 22%. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. Folks, this is freaking crazy what this stuff does. They know what this stuff does. They've known what this stuff does, folks. I'm reading to you from a CIA declassified document out of the Soviet Union from 1977.
Probably one of the largest.
I'm going to continue here, folks.
I think we brought in probably almost 50% more toys this year.
The presented data.
I want to thank the residents for their generosity.
Let me get back to this here. It hurts to hold this up. This thing is so heavy. There's like 100 pages here.
Help sponsor our
The changes of the nucleic acids concentration was more expressed in the liver, spleen, and kidneys than in the heart and the lungs. Together with reduction of the nucleic acids content, the quantity of acid-soluble products in the liver and spleen of irradiated animals increased by 35 and 43%. The activity of ribonuclease and DNAs increased by 50%. They're screwing with metabolic processes almost in double digits, folks. Under the influence of radio waves, the protein spectrum of the blood serum changed. This stuff affects your blood, all right? The blood is your life, all right? Get the likes up, folks. Come on.
But most of all, I just want to thank.
Under the influence of radio waves, the protein spectrum of the blood serum changed, and the albumin content decreased, and the number of globulins increased, which led to a decrease of the value of the albumin globulin coefficient. And the number of free amino acids decreased by 22%. An indicator of reduced level of protein synthesis in the irradiated animals was also established.
They listed all the toys that they received.
A reduction of the rate of inclusion of carbon-14 methionine in the proteins of the liver, spleen, lymph nodes, and thymus was also observed. The presented data testifies to substantial changes in the protein metabolism which occur under the influences of multiple irradiation of animals by millimeter radio waves. Evidently, the reduction of the energy level occurring in the organism under the influence of millimeter radio waves had an effect on the formation of macroergs and caused a suppression of all functions of the organism, including suppressions of synthetic processes, but especially of nucleoprotein metabolism, which is very energy consuming. The conducted experimental investigations were compared with observations of the state of health of 97 persons working with generators of the millimeter range on the basis of systemic conducting of biochemical analyses, and the obtained data confirmed the existence of an influence of radio waves on the states of metabolic processes in the organism. In particular, changes of the indicators of protein and carbohydrate metabolism were revealed in disturbances of indicators of immunobiological activity.
I have no more comments. Okay. If we have someone else from the audience, assuming we can directly, you can step up to the.
They're still doing regular public comments, so it's not time yet.
Good evening. My name is Mark Warshaw. I live and work here in Hermosa Beach, and I'm here once
All right,
again.
the conducted experimental analysis investigations were compared with observations of the state of health of 97 people. So they did some tests on some people. The conducted investigations indicated high biological activity and an unfavorable influence of millimeter radio waves on the organism. The expression of the biological reactions increase with the increase of the period of irradiation and depend on individual characteristics of the organism.
And particularly in the last couple of days, I've been meeting with many of the retailers.
Ladies and gentlemen,
impacted by this ordinance.
Like I had said before, I went through about 5 pages of this stuff, all right? I haven't presented this yet, but what I'm telling you is that when you mess with the mitochondria, when you mess with blood proteins, blood serum, when you mess with organ function, when you mess with the amount of biological metabolites and the chemistry of the blood and the mitochondria and the ATP and the electron transport chain, you are messing with the very essence of life. And that is how the 5G and the millimeter wave systems are going to be phased in, and the coming epidemic that they're going to blame on some pathogenic exposure is really going to be radio frequency induced sickness. Once again, millimeter waves, folks, demyelination. How would you like to have the insulation stripped off your nerves and your skin? Well, that's the first paragraph. That's what it does. All right. Then we've got erythrocytic and leukocytic composition of the blood changing. We've got issues with the immune system. We've got issues with mitochondrial function. We've got issues with phosphorylation. We've got issues with all kinds of biological processes. And this was in 1977, ladies and gentlemen. This was in 1977. This is a CIA document that was declassified. This is called the biological effect of millimeter radio waves, folks. And I am at the Hermosa Beach City Council tonight, waiting for my chance to give them 3 minutes of hell over what they're about to do to everybody in this community that has no freaking clue about what's about to be done to them, because they want to put these transmitters, Verizon and Crown Castle and AT&T and all these other corporations want to put these antennas every 200 feet on public rights-of-way and irradiate the living crap out of every man, woman, and child in this community. And it is up to these people right here to say no to this stuff. Okay? Now, here's the agenda. Here's the FCC brief under the Donald Trump administration that is trying to ram this through. Okay? They're trying to use a law that Clinton had signed into law back in 1996 called the Telecommunications Act, which was designed to produce... Am I being called in here? I guess I better. I'm going to come into the room. We're going to cut this. I'm going to flip this camera around, folks. Actually, maybe I won't. You can just kind of watch the whole thing.
Many people I went around and spoke with about 225.
Okay, I'm going in.
And we came up with a plan that we thought would work good and enable the people to be dropped
What's going on?
off Valley and Florida people coming off.
Yes.
I presented a school board.
Okay,
It was never discussed in public.
so they haven't gone into
And
that item yet, right? No. Okay. There's
never
nothing to
heard
speak here.
anything about it.
We have to wait till they call it.
It's-
Yeah. Right, I'm going to go back
Everything
outside.
we talked about in one of these meetings.
I'm going to go back outside, folks.
Parking and traffic.
You can see what's
None
going
of
on.
them
It's
have
not
been
time yet.
addressed. And if you go through the draft EIR and you look at all the letters, everybody has basically the same
Okay, folks.
things.
I'm going to step outside where it's a little more quiet so I can talk to you directly without disturbance. Okay. I appreciate you staying with me, folks. This stuff is a nightmare, ladies and gentlemen. This stuff is a nightmare. You got to understand. In 1977, the Russians were studying what this stuff did to rats. And in 2018, Donald Trump is trying to put it outside everyone's bedroom window, okay? I don't care what kind of wall he's building. I don't care what kind of tax break you got. Your kids are going to get killed by this stuff. You're going to get cancer. You're going to end up in a nursing home. You're going to end up in hospice. This stuff is a full body shutdown. It is a long-term, strategically laid out plan. And this information has been out for 41 years, just recently declassified by the CIA, and I've just read to you verbatim what this stuff is. Now, if any of you out there listening to me are medical doctors, how in the world, in good conscience, can you sit back and allow this technology to be deployed everywhere? And you young people that are in school, I know I read really fast. I know I read really quick. But here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the deal, boys and girls. Here's the deal, grandmas and grandpas. The FCC is telling everybody that we can't stop it. And yet, once again, this is a study from 1977. Demyelination. Do you know what's causing all the autism right now, ladies and gentlemen? Do you know what's causing all the autism? I'll tell you what's causing. You know why? Like I said this morning, all these kids are autistic. Do you know why that is? because they're getting the myelin stripped off of their nerves from all the metals in their brains as their brain's blood-brain barrier are being opened up by microwave exposure. And the metals are getting into them that are coming out of the aluminum cans, the aluminum cookware, and that's falling out of the sky from the chemtrails, and it's in the fertilizers, and it's in the antiperspirants, it's in the baking powders. And what happens when the blood-brain barrier is opened by specific frequencies such as 2.4 gigahertz, it just so happens to open the blood-brain barrier and let that stuff in, you get the metals getting hit with microwave radiation, and you get voltage discharges off the tips of that those metallic nanocompounds, and those voltage discharges are stripping and burning up the myelin off of these children. That's why their brains are being damaged. Okay? Too many of you out there in the medical field are monsters. You keep pushing for more vaccines, you refuse to understand that we're being electrocuted and that the children are being destroyed. Okay? This stuff, folks, is a weapon. All right? This stuff's a weapon. I don't know. Maybe I need to go back in right now. Hang on. Sorry about this. This is how it is when I'm on the go, right? Let's see where we're at here. Not sure it's time yet. All right. So, for the record, AT&T and Verizon have all submitted their concerns over what's being proposed here tonight because it's too restrictive, when in fact none of this should be even being considered in the first place. What we have established, once again, I'll read this.
Councilmember Van-Gary,
As a result of the histopathological analysis showed in the functionality, active structures of the tissue of the myocardium, liver, kidneys, and spleen, disorders of the hemodynamics were established with disruption of permeability of the vesicular membranes and the appearance of micronecrosis and subsequent tissue dystrophy. Moreover, qualitative and qualitative shifts were revealed in the erythrocytic and leukocytic composition of the blood of irradiated animals, indicating suppression of the hemopoietic function of the bone marrow, okay, and the lymphatic system. Okay, listen, folks. You want leukemia? You get 5G in your backyard, you're going to get leukemia. You want some sort of a cancer of the lymphatic system? Go for it. Noted in the composition of the red blood was eosinophils, neutrophils, and lymphemia, and lowering of the hemoglobin level and the reduction of the number of erythrocytes were observed. Now, I want to talk about hemoglobin because 60 gigahertz is going to be part of the 5G, folks. 60 gigahertz happens to be the exact frequency of the oxygen molecule absorption. We're going to go in right now, folks. So we got hemoglobin levels dropping.
Mayor Pro Tem Campbell,
Yes.
and Mayor
This is Councilmember Van-Gary. I can barely hear what's going on at the council, so I don't want to delay this process. I think I'm just
Okay, we're going to start talking in a couple minutes here, folks.
the meeting online.
All right. You will be missed, Councilmember. Thank you for attempting to participate. We appreciate that. And I'll vote yes on that. All right, so now that Councilmember Van-Gary has dropped off.
Please be patient, ladies and gentlemen.
we make the roll call, okay? Okay, we're hanging up on you. All right, Madam Clerk.
Grind all 60
Probably
rounds.
should go to public hearing since it's 7:30. Item 5A is consideration of an ordinance to allow and regulate wireless communication facilities in the public right-of-way and corresponding design standards, and update on AT&T's proposal for multiple installations of smaller wireless communication facilities to provide replacement coverage to existing sites located at 20th and 29th Court. And this was continued from the meeting of September 25th. The report is in Assistant City Attorney Lauren Linger, Community Development Director Anna Robertson, and Public Works Director Lynn Powell.
All right, before we get into the staff report on that, can I just update anyone watching or in the audience, or maybe we can inform those in the foyer that we will in fact be taking a vote on the consent ordinance on the tobacco retailer's license. We will be hearing a staff report, we will be asking questions.
This is the agenda item right here, ladies and gentlemen.
Comment and taking a vote on that item. So
want you to see all the players in the room on this, okay, ladies and gentlemen? These are all the people making these decisions. Oh, I know, I want to keep the... These are the people that are going to make the decisions to cook you and your children, folks. And these are where the decisions are made while you're staying home watching the ball game or making your brownies or drinking your Budweiser. You need to wake up, okay? You people need to wake up.
Yes.
See all the empty chairs in here? This place should have a line from here all the way to the pier, folks.
Okay, good evening. Lauren Langer, Assistant City Attorney. I am here tonight to present the wireless facilities in the public right-of-way ordinance and design standards. So I'm going to go through a little bit of background, a little bit of background on the law. I'll go through the ordinance, the design standards. I'll respond to some of the comment letters we received today, and then at the end of the presentation, I'm available. I have one of my colleagues, Gail Carriage, here available, as well as staff to answer any questions. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was why do we even need an ordinance for wireless facilities in the public right-of-way? As everyone in this room is probably aware, there's a tremendous demand for wireless services right now. Streaming videos, everyone has multiple devices, the Internet of Things, smart city applications that are coming online. The demand on wireless service is increasing, and it's creating an increased interest to locate facilities in the public right-of-way. Hermosa's code is very outdated and has not been updated in many years and doesn't respond to all these changes in technology and new wireless systems that we have. There's also an ambiguity in the code as to whether or not the public right-of-way is included.
This is all lies, folks. My stream's working just fine with this old technology.
Residential zones. So this ordinance could provide an opportunity to clarify that.
Back outside.
Carriers also need different types of capacity and coverage, and small cells that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, you got it, all right?
Gap left by macro facilities.
You need to get the likes up. You need to get this thing, put it out on social media, what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen. So once again, we've got, these guys want to put in millimeter wave antennas and transmitting systems everywhere. We know that millimeter waves affect hemoglobin, and we know that the hemoglobin is what is necessary to carry oxygen to your tissues. Now, they've chosen 60 gigahertz to be part of this unlicensed spectrum, and that just happens to be the absorption spectrum of oxygen molecules, ladies and gentlemen. So, what do we take out of this? All right, well, we know that millimeter waves themselves affect hemoglobin levels, and we know that 60 gigahertz, which is going to be the 5G backhaul frequency, the point-to-point backhaul frequency, and the Y-gig frequency for your house. What that's going to do is that's going to affect the orbital spin properties of the diatomic oxygen molecules. So not only do we have millimeter waves that are below 60 gigahertz and above 60 gigahertz affecting hemoglobin, we now have a situation where we're going to have in-home Wi-Fi that's going to use a 60 gigahertz frequency that's going to affect the orbital spin properties of the electrons, the valence electrons, that will make the hemoglobin have a very difficult time binding and transporting the oxygen, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very serious problem. The problem is these city employees and these attorneys, they're all working for the man, and they're all part of the system, and they don't understand, and when you present them with this information, it is up to them to open their eyes and look at it. They've known for 41 years that microwave radiation in the millimeter wave radiation is a weapon, and that's why they're deploying it. And that's why Donald Trump and his FCC are ramming it down everyone's throat. What they've done with this document here is they've pretty much come to the city and say, hey, screw you. You got 60 days to approve these. We don't care what they do or where you're going to put them, as long as they don't obstruct, they're aesthetically okay, then that's fine. No, ladies and gentlemen. They're all believing the lies of the Telecom Act. The Telecom Act was never designed for small cell sightings. It was designed for towers and antennas, not these things. We got a big problem on our hands, folks, because what we've got going on in this room is people that are going to make decisions for a lot of innocent, unsuspecting, in a lot of cases, myopic, lazy, and cowardly people. The 5G systems, ladies and gentlemen. Now they're talking about the shortened shot clock here, where they got to ram this stuff through. They don't want to have people to have notification. They don't want to have people to have understanding of the technology. They don't want people to understand the effects of millimeter waves on human health, even though the studies have been out for over 40 years. And it is very clear to me that we're in a lot of trouble. We have this has become a national priority under President Trump. He has nationalized 5G. He has nationalized the deployment of millimeter wave weaponry. And his FCC under Mr. Patel has made it very difficult. And we know that the prior monster that was in charge of the FCC prior to this gentleman has pretty much said, you're going to get it whether you like it or not. And we're rolling it out. Well, I want to tell you something, folks. You need to understand. You need to understand that these things are going to be on all the light poles. They're going to be on all of the telephone poles. They're going to be outside your window. They're going to be outside your house. They're going to be in businesses. They're going to be in buildings. And guess what, folks? These things are weapons. And they're going to be aimed at you and your families. And just because something is legal doesn't mean it's moral. All I know is if someone has a weapon aimed at me or my children, I'm going to do whatever it takes to defend my family. I am here tonight in this council chambers to bring attention to what you all need to do out there at the local level in your cities. If you can't stop these people, you can at least put them on notice, and when the time comes to put them all in jail and sue them for what they've done to your families, then you can own their pensions, their bank accounts, their cars, and their purses. And at the same time, we can make them all famous for making these decisions. All they care about are design standards, right? No, I just read you the health effects from 41 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. They've known about what this stuff does. They've known. This stuff affects the nervous system. This stuff affects the central nervous system, ladies and gentlemen. This stuff affects the blood. This stuff affects the brain. This stuff affects neurotransmitters. This stuff affects the liver, the kidneys. It affects the oxygen consumption rate by the mitochondria, ladies and gentlemen. Every disease and disorder in human health is caused by mitochondrial disease, mitochondrial disorder. We have the evidence that they have conducted an investigation that showed that the irradiation of animals by millimeter waves caused changes of the processes of oxidative phosphorylation in the liver, kidneys, heart, brain of the animals. The irradiation inhibited the oxygen consumption rate by the mitochondria of those organs in the active phosphorylating state and slowed down the rate of respiration upon exhaustion of the adenine triphosphate. In the liver and kidneys of irradiated animals, the intensity of phosphorylation decreased by 64%. Ladies and gentlemen, when you decrease the phosphorylation, you're basically slowing the current down that's running your bodies, your cells, and everything else. Look, folks, put the likes out on this. Come on. Where is everybody tonight? You know, I haven't even had dinner. What time is it where you're at? I left my house this morning, and all I've had was 2 cups of coffee all day. All right? And I don't want to hear about my hairdo right now. I'm trying to defend the lives of you and your children. You think I'm enjoying this? This stuff pisses me off. This is evil, folks. And you know what's even worse is how stupid everybody is and how nobody cares. This is where Disease X is going to come from. You're going to have Disease X caused by electromagnetic exposure. They're setting up a psychotronic, electronic voodoo doll system. And right now what you're hearing is the Assistant City Attorney sugarcoating the draft ordinance. This is the first reading tonight at the Hermosa Beach City Council. We're here at the City Council chambers. And I'm trying to wait for my turn to get up there and speak for 3 minutes because that's all they give me. Yeah, isn't this nice? They get all these... resolutions, a nice pretty place, nice plaque, you know, and
The carriers have to provide a performance bond, so if they don't facilitate.
there's a lot of mumbo jumbo going on right now. I know this is a long stream, folks. Yes, Apple sold their first laptop, their first computer for $666.66. That's right, folks. And you can go to apple666.org and you can see the sterilization agenda completely laid out on the FULLERTONInformer.com under that site. You can go to 5gdangers.com. Now, if you really want to hear, and if you want this document I just read from, you can go to 5gdangers.com. I repeat, www.5gdangers.com. And you'll see a couple of videos I've done as well as a download link where you can download this document that I have in my hand, folks. I have these studies from declassified CIA documents, folks, right here in my hand, about ready to enter this into the public record at a city council meeting in a city I don't even live in that's 50 miles from my house. You know why? Because I care, and if they haven't had the exposure to this information, they will now. That's right. That's what this is all about.
The facilities are
You know,
design guidelines to be as small.
the government has
And it's enforced.
the government has crossed the line, folks, because now they're actually in the process of conning you into thinking that you need this new generation of wireless. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. The reason we need this wireless is because they want to kill us with it. They want to control us with it. They want to surveil us with it. They want to finish us off. Can you guys hear me okay, folks? There's a lot of talk in this room. It's kind of loud here. Can you guys hear me?
Staff recommends that they be sited above the roof line to avoid.
All right, good.
The alleys are very tight.
I can't stand sitting in there. I'd rather talk to you than listen to this woman, you know, throw up her lunch and say how wonderful all this crap is, how they're going along with it. Look, folks, this is what 5G is a criminal act against the American people. And Donald Trump is engaging in warfare against the American people with millimeter wave deployment being a national priority. He knows what this stuff does. He was put in place by his handlers to do a lot of things, folks. And this is another piece of the pie. All right? You need to realize, go to 5gdangers.com. 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 You'll be able to see the videos I've done as well as the study. As well as the study that I've read from. There's a download link there. It's embedded on my website. They cannot take it down. We have this. We need to share this document with everybody. It's the first 5 pages of this document. The first 5 pages of this document, you can find this on 5gdangers.com, ladies and gentlemen. 5gdangers.com. And it's called The Biological Effect of Millimeter Radio Waves. And it talks about power levels that will be very similar to what is going to be deployed. And it talks about frequencies that are very similar to what is about to be deployed. Let me see if it's time to go in. Right now they're just talking about design standards and aesthetics. And that's really of no concern to me, because the weaponry, I don't care what the weaponry looks like. You know, I don't care if a gun has got a silver or a gold barrel on it. It can still kill you if it's aimed at you, folks. You guys got to wake up out there. Wake up and get with the program. It's been a long day, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a very long day for me. Okay, very long day. I'm sorry. Just trying to make some adjustments on my low-budget technology. You know, if you've noticed, I have not a monetized channel. I'm not out there with a PayPal link. You know, folks, I just care. Okay? If you want to reach me, my P.O. Box is 4121 Fullerton, California, 92834. That's how it is. We know that the telecom's always going to win in court. We know that they got all the lawyers, they got all the monies, and they've already paid off the city officials. And we got the federal government with all the lawyers and all the money. But here's the deal, folks. There's way more of us than them. And if they put these weapons everywhere, I just wonder, how much are we going to take? How much are we going to take? Look, folks, you see this right here? This document? You can go to 5gdangers.com. You can pull this up, and you can see what it says. You can see what millimeter waves do. You can see and read for yourself from 41 years ago. Now, do you think that anybody that has any intellectual honesty could sit back and ignore what I just read to you? Impossible. Absolutely impossible, ladies and gentlemen. It is totally impossible. Nonetheless, we still find ourselves in this dilemma. You know why? Because the powers of hell and the powers of evil are very strong and very determined. And guess what? This is all they got. This place is all they got, folks.
Again, on the left would be prohibited wireless facilities on the street lights.
They're still talking about their plans to put this crap everywhere. Let's come on in here and film how they're going to put the weaponry everywhere. Because let's have a look at this.
That staff is recommending and has the design guidelines to look like that. Just to clarify, this is also in the staff report that we're not talking about big macro facilities here in the public right of way, which is what you can see on the right, or these carriers on wheels. These aren't addressed by the ordinance. We're really talking about putting wireless facilities on streetlights and utility poles in the city's right of way. Okay, so we received quite a few comment letters today from various carriers, and after reviewing them, we recommend some proposed changes to the language that would be responsive to some of their concerns. And so I'm going to put the language up here so everybody can see. So these are recommended changes to the ordinance. One of the carriers asked to specifically clarify that these are allowed in the right-of-way adjacent to all zoning districts, because that would address the ambiguity in the code.
This is the assistant city attorney trying to write this thing.
So we're
Cook to order for the wireless companies, folks.
We are agreeable. Some of the carriers
I'm going to be
have
speaking in
concerns
just a
about
couple
getting signed
moments.
and notarized proof of owner's authorization, because if they're using poles that are subject to joint use authority with other utilities and other carriers, it might be difficult to get. So we agreed to some changes to just require proof of owner's authorization to be on the pole. Some carriers had concerns about if they submit a copy of their lease to use the site, that lease may have some proprietary information that shouldn't be made public, and we don't need it for our review. So we agreed to language that proprietary information could be redacted from those leases. It doesn't impact our review, and they can keep it confidential. Applications, this is a little semantics. Some carriers had concerns that applications would be rejected if they weren't complete. And in talking with staff and figuring out our process, the important part is that the carriers are notified about what is not included in their application that needs to be. And so we just agreed to change the language to address their concern. But if they submit an application and it doesn't include all the required components, staff is going to give them a list of what they need to submit. In the conditions of approval, the carriers asked
Stay with
for
me,
90
folks,
days
please.
instead of 30 days to install the installation once they get their permits. They thought 30 days, they wouldn't be able to get it done in 30 days. So that is a change that we would be amenable to. For commencement of operations, there was also some concern that they couldn't get up and running once it's built within 90 days. So they wanted a little bit more time, or to delete this provision entirely. We decided on a proposal that would give them a little bit more time, 180 days after completion of installation. So a majority of the comments in the letters were on the proposed design standards. And we we
None of the carriers
recommend
care
not
about the
acting on
health
those
effects.
tonight. We want a little bit more time to talk
All they
with
care about is what
independent
the
staff
weapons
and
look
other work
like.
staff and really understand the issues that they're raising so we can come up with good guidelines that work and that respond to everybody's needs. So staff would recommend introducing the ordinance on first reading with the proposed revisions. I know we've been waiting a long time to get this ordinance on the books, and so we think with those changes, you could go ahead and introduce the ordinance tonight, and then we could take a little bit more time to revise the design standards through the resolution and bring those back to you at a future meeting. And then as a side item, we'll also be bringing back a permit fee, so there's an application fee for this new application, this new wireless permit, and a proposed master lease agreement for when the carriers want to site their facilities on city-owned poles. So we can have one template agreement that we use all the time, and we don't need to be negotiating 10 different agreements with 10 different carriers. So those are our proposed recommendations tonight. I'm available for questions. I also wanted to introduce my colleague Gail Karish, who's here with me. She's available for questions as well. She practices only in wireless law. And so we are here to answer legal questions you may have about the ordinance, and then staff is also here to answer questions about the process and how this would be implemented.
Thank you, Lauren, for that.
These are the people bringing the stuff to you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam City Attorney. We had a comment from one of our commissioners about whether we should include minimum heights among, I believe, the design standards. I'm not sure exactly what part of the ordinance they would be in, but can you address that topic briefly? Whether we have the power to do that, whether that's otherwise addressed in the proposed ordinance, and anything else you might want to.
Do you have a comment? Yeah, we can come up.
These are the people laying out the design for the weaponry, ladies and gentlemen. They're splitting hairs over the color and the height of the weaponry. We're live at the Hermosa Beach City Council meeting tonight, and what we have on hand is a discussion of 5G antennas.
Sorry, Lauren. The communication you're speaking of is from our David, and he made a comment about how the ordinance and the design standards and resolution propose maximum heights. It doesn't propose minimum heights. We are concerned about adjacency to structures, especially windows. And so how we've addressed it in order to give some parameters and give method of intent, what we want to avoid, but also give some flexibility is, so in the resolution that we're not recommending, but there's a section on page 3 of the reso, section 2C, when choosing locations, choose locations in between.
It's going to be coming real quick here, folks.
Rather than immediately adjacent to occupied buildings and not adjacent to a window. So we think we're covering it that way.
And on the walkthroughs, you recommended them being lower, and on the alleys being higher to try and address that without putting a specific number of minimum height. But again, we're going to look at those design standards and look at all the comments we received and come back with some revisions.
Okay, good. So you provided some provisions which I think are good and well thought out, that are not numeric, but basically saying thou shalt place this in a way that's going to be minimally obtrusive and all that, which should address some of our concerns about, on a case-by-case basis, finding the best location for each of these so that it doesn't impede any kind of traffic or isn't any more obvious than it otherwise needs to be. So I appreciate that. My only other comment is simply to point out what I think is just a simple clerical error, probably from the redrafting today in response to the carrier comments. The proposed changes to section 12.18.070. We struck ing from the end of notified, but left it on specified. So just when you go through this again, just make sure that you proofread it. And I will say that this is a complex topic, so it's amazing you did as well as you did in the short time that you had to respond to this comment. So thank you. Thank you, Madam.
You guys all still with us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of quick ones. So much this discussion started and centered around the indicates that they'd be looking for a potential alternate micro tower solution, and if that couldn't be done, then they would go to a small cell solution to the problem. And my sense of it is just given all the years we've had of this, is that that we have exhausted all possible potential locations for a large tower solution, am I right?
Yeah, I believe that's correct, and AT&T has been in communication with staff through this whole process, and they could probably speak to it, but I think they are, if this ordinance is adopted, prepared to make a proposal that follows this ordinance and is not looking at a larger site somewhere else in the city.
And then lastly, and maybe here I may have missed it.
I don't think these people understand.
Is there a sort of maximum number of, let's say, small cell units that can be placed in a particular area? I mean, I know there's some discretion built in here in terms of how to do it, but is there some threshold that sort of, it says this is the maximum number? And then I think you addressed the sort of the spacing issue in terms of between, but I'm just curious if that's something that's addressed at all.
There is not a maximum number because it really depends on the needs of each carrier. They have certain coverage needs, and so we have to address.
Well, I was more thinking about our capacity
Right.
to accommodate.
No, but we don't have a cap, and we do our best to make that
Means the sky is the
to
limit.
fit into our
folks.
community as best as possible through the design standards.
So that would be factored into the city's discretion in terms of how this works, I assume. Not
Yes, and as
whether
we
it
see
be
these,
appropriate.
we can also revise our design standards as we see these and as they get implemented and as things change. We also have the ability to change and evolve as time moves on. So I think we'll have to see how it goes.
Thank you.
Good evening, thank you for having me here too. I was just going to add, just to clarify on that, one of the ways that cities look at doing that, limiting the number, just generally, is through spacing requirements. And the FCC, like they may say, oh no, it can only be every 500 feet or 1,000 feet or something like that. And the FCC in this latest small cell order commented on that, and they've not given very clear guidance, but they basically said that that may be a legitimate aesthetic sort of standard to come up with, that you require them only certain spacing because you try to deal with clutter in the right of way and things like that. But they said they don't expect that it would be acceptable if you had a standard that didn't allow them to place small wireless facilities on existing infrastructure. So think of the spacing of your existing utility poles and streetlights. It would be hard for you to say you can use every one of them. It's sort of how you read the tea leaves or what the FCC was suggesting in the order.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to shout out to everybody, especially some of you who put so much time into this. It's an incredibly complicated solution needed here for our very unique challenges in our very compacted environment. So I really want to acknowledge that and thank you. There's a lot of information here. And I also want to thank you for the quick turnaround on all the added questions that some of us provided to you yesterday or today and that came in from others today. So you answered a lot of those questions and concerns inside of a couple of hours. So I just want to thank you for that hustle. And I wanted to say, from my perspective, this is tricky. It's a fact of modern life. But one of the questions I had posed to those of you who were answering questions was, what does the future look like? Because all we hear is that we're going to need more and more and more streaming bandwidth. And I'm sure innovations will come, and hopefully they'll get smaller as they go. But and the answer I got was we can't predict the future, but we just do the best we can with what we have. So I have a couple of kind of specific questions. One is, if I heard you right, Lauren, what you have recommended that we do tonight is just move on number 1 of the staff recommendation? Okay. Just want to make sure I was clear on that. And then also, one of the questions I had also asked is, what is the timeline for implementing this? Should we move this forward and then over the course of the next few years or whatever it takes? And the answer that I received, and I don't recall if I heard you cover this, is it could take 5 to 10 years to move through the entire city. Did I hear that right or read that right? I just thought that was worth repeating. It didn't surprise me when I saw it, but it seems like it would be an enormous undertaking and have to be phased in.
Yeah, I think it's hard, I think the carriers at this moment, because their business plans related to small cell deployments, there's a lot of different sorts of things they might do with these new deployments and the new spectrum that they will use, that they don't really have a vision for what they're going to want to do over the long term, or what business model will work for some of these Internet of Things or connected cars or all of that. So it's something we'll be dealing with for many years to come.
Right. Well, and that might have been my wrap-up thought, is just that given our circumstances, we're going to have to be really diligent about these things as they come up, because it would be easy to miss a few important things and then have to deal with the aftermath of something that looked really atrocious or junky or, too crowded on one ball. Thank you for the pictures, because those are helpful. So that concludes my questions now.
All right, thank you. I just have a couple questions of my own. I needed some clarification, if you don't mind, on why we would want to locate on walk streets below the roof line.
We talked about that with staff. I don't know if Kim wants to chime in. Really to protect the openness, the views. Each area of the city is a little bit different, and staff thought that might be the most aesthetically pleasing look, as opposed to where it can go and have the least amount of impact.
You nailed it.
My mind immediately goes to, it would be closer to people's windows and
That's
their
right.
homes, and that's been the
That's
source
right.
of some complaints. But if that's not the case, then we think that it's going to be more acceptable to our residents, and I'll stay within my that one. We touched on this a little bit, but I need a little more clarification. Can we regulate the number of feet from a home that they can be located? So,
Well, the tricky part about that is what I was talking about earlier in terms of what the FCC has said on.
This is
basic
really
requirements.
scary, folks.
So their presumption is that if there is existing utility infrastructure, such as a street light or a utility pole, that should be made available for use. And so where that's located relative to a home is, I don't know how your setback, what your setbacks are, or if they're non-conforming homes sometimes and things like that. That's more dictated by what you're, on the zoning side of what structures you've allowed, and not so much where the utility poles are located.
so we could only require them to be as far away from the home as we have a utility pole.
Yeah.
And then on the issue of co-locating, it sounds like we would require them to co-locate, or we could require them to co-locate.
It's encouraged
Encouraged.
under the current language.
Okay.
This
What
encourages the
about
maximum number of
Are they
cells
allowed to
per
sublease?
location, maximizing the deployment of the weaponry.
So
This
I
is
think
insane,
that
folks.
situation would arise when you're talking about a new structure. So with the utility pole, it's all about subleasing, or we're sharing the space, because you can have multiple owners of a utility pole. There's two ways you can get on a utility pole to get really nerdy here. You can be a renter, or you can be an owner. And if you are a member of that joint pole authority and you're buying your space, and you're not really subleasing, you're using that space. And all of the wireless providers and the telephone companies typically are members. So they typically choose to buy space on their pole. So there's not really a subleasing component unless you're dealing with a standalone pole. So if a carrier is putting up a wireless only kind of pole in the or a replacement streetlight where they're going to put multiple carriers on, that's a situation where you might find where they would do some subleasing. Subleasing is one way to think of it, or that there would be multiple carriers using the same pole, but one pole owner.
Okay, could a renter then sublease? So if someone comes in and gets approvals from the city, could they then transfer that approval to someone else?
So they can, I think that would be dealt with
That's what
their,
I'm trying to get at. Could someone make
oh, I see.
off of
Yeah.
using our utility poles without us knowing?
So they can't, so the utility poles, they're, everyone is either on as an owner or they are a renter under a regulated rate, regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission. So there's no kind of trade in that. Utility pole space, and with your, if they're on your own street lights, they will, you can control that under your master license agreement, whether you would allow some leasing or whether you would just want to have the contract directly with the owner of the installation.
And would we want that contract directly with the owner of the install? Is that in our benefit on our rules, or am I missing?
Yeah, a lot of times that's what cities prefer, but sometimes they, they deal with companies that do some leasing, and what they try to do is just protect the city's interest in that case by, making sure that whoever is subleasing, has to comply with the same terms and conditions. You don't have to deal with one, whoever you're directly contracting with, that's the only contact you have, things like that. Yeah, so you can deal with that when you're a pole owner, if they're using your street lights.
And we'll highlight the assignment language when we bring you back the master license agreement, so you can see what the terms are.
Great, perfect. All right, that is the end of my questions, and it doesn't look like my colleagues have any more, so I think at this time we can open it up for public comment.
I'll leave the proposed changes up here if any of the commenters want to see them.
Is there anyone interested in public comment at this time? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Joe Imbriano. I run the FullertonInformer.com website and the Fullerton Informer YouTube channel. Website called WiFiDangers.com and CellTowerDangers.com and 5GDangers.com and a number of other sites. I don't know if any of you have ever seen this document. This is a CIA declassified document from the Soviet Union, specifically going over what millimeter waves do to people. I know what Bill Clinton did when he was in the White House, and he tried to tie your hands on saying no to putting this weaponry everywhere. I'm here to tell you, and I'm going to leave you a copy of this document, that what you're going to be voting on is what color to paint the guns aimed at your residence. Millimeter waves are a weapon. Millimeter waves are a carcinogenic compound. 41 years ago in 1977, they knew this stuff affected the central nervous system, blood chemistry, brain function, reflexes, cognitive function, all of these things, all the way down to the mitochondrial function of the cells. It's right here in this document. And by listening to you and reading the staff reports, you all have a good command of the English language. And if you think you have no way of stopping this, you're terribly mistaken. Because you have an arsenal at your disposal of legal help that can do just what Seattle did and say no to this. And push it back and say, no, these are our poles, these are our people. Forget the gold tassel around that flag. Forget the facts that you may not believe in the one that the Bible talks about when you were sworn into office. And I'm going to say something right now tonight, because I didn't hear an invocation to this meeting, but in the name of Jesus Christ, may you stop this and open your eyes. We have an epidemic of autism that is going off the charts, and that's a dichotomy imbalance with a bunch of people making a lot of money off this gold rush to kill everybody. And we got a president who's pushing this like it's the neatest thing since sliced bread. 5G is a Trump agenda. I'm going to go into one more thing. You're going to get it to the windows. You're going to get it to the outside. There's going to need to be a wide gig system in the home at 60 gigahertz. That's the absorption spectrum of oxygen molecules, ladies and gentlemen. It affects the orbital spin properties of the valence electrons of the diatomic oxygen molecules. And the millimeter wave sub 60 gigahertz affects the hemoglobin, oxygen uptake. I'm telling you, there's all kinds of ways you can stop this. 5gdangers.com, the FullertonInformer.com. And in the name of Almighty God, would you please open your eyes? And where's the clerk that I can leave this document with? Who can I hand this to? Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
It's this one right here. Thank you, ma'am.
And sorry for overlooking that part, if you had cards.
Go ahead, Gary.
Okay, the next one would be Gary Jelena.
That's me. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. That presentation was complete deception. I am shocked that we heard a presentation on 5G wireless deployment and not one time they even say 5G. They showed that it was small cells, but they never said what it actually was. 4G, which is what we are using right now, utilizes microwave frequencies. The new 5G utilizes millimeter wave frequencies. If you have ever been to the airport, the TSA body scanners use millimeter waves to x-ray you. It says so as you walk up. So if you put 5G in the city, you'll be forcing the residents to walk through x-rays every day. Millimeter wave technology was invented by the US military and was deployed as a weapon against an enemy in the Middle East. An example is called active denial system, a directed energy weapon millimeter wave system. 5G is a weapon system. There's no denying this. Over in The Hague, in the Netherlands, they installed 5G and tested to see how powerful it was. And the result is the birds fell out of the sky dead on the ground. You can look this up. If you put this up and it falls into the wrong hands, we are all in serious trouble. Now, the reason why we are told we need this is because apparently we need to be able to illegally pirate movies much quicker than we can currently. The real reason is artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things, as said in the presentation. The Internet of Things is the idea that all appliances are hooked up to the Internet, like your toaster, your trash can, your thermostat, etc. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a surveillance system and is used to x-ray you in the airport. The so-called smart appliances listen to your every command, which means they are listening to you. I don't want to live in a world where around every corner is a piece of technology snooping in on my conversation. This is beyond Orwellian. The propaganda campaign for 5G is just getting started, and they're telling us that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But guess what? 5G was developed in the nation of Israel, and Israel is not putting 5G in their country because they know what this is. These lawyers that you have are going to come up here and try to debunk me, but I have an industry trade publication where GSMA Intelligence tells us this reality. This is unneeded technology being forced on the population. We are told that China is doing this, therefore we need to compete.
30 seconds.
China is a nation that has enslaved its population and is doing so with technology like this. If we really care about being a free country, the last thing we should be doing is emulating China. Do the right thing. Say no to 5G in Hermosa Beach. Here's the publication that I have where they tell us all about this technology, what it's going to do, what it's capable of, and that certain countries who developed it are not even getting it. Thank you.
Next would be Emily Murray, and she will be followed by Michael Cintron.
That was great, Gary.
Good evening, Emily Murray, appearing on behalf of AT&T this evening. At the outset, I'd like to thank staff and Ms. Langer, who've been working with us for a long time on trying to find a solution for the 20th and 29th court locations.
I'm going to step
To
outside.
answer a question that came up during the questions of Ms. Langer.
All right, folks, there
AT&T's
you have it.
relocation solution for those two sites is no longer influence a macro.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And that last speaker was Gary Galeno from Grindall 61. I want to thank all of you for sticking around and listening and watching. You know, it's been a long evening. But what Gary pointed out is the inventors of this technology, Qualcomm out of Israel, and Israel's not even getting 5G, but yet they want to ram this stuff into neighborhoods right outside everybody's buildings. This is unbelievable, folks. They were put on notice tonight with a military document. That outlines the health effects of what's going on. You're welcome. Thanks for showing up, buddy.
Very few white magicians left on this planet. That's why the black magicians are winning.
Yeah, they're not going to win, buddy. So what we got going on here, folks, is they've been presented with the information. They've been presented with the scientific facts from the studies from 41 years ago about how this stuff is a weapons grid. And there's a bunch of people making money off of this and making a decent living off of this circus to kill everybody. I'm here to warn you, folks, that the reality of what we face is a lot worse and a lot closer than you think. You cannot allow these systems to be placed in your places of employment, in your automobiles, in your homes, in your neighborhoods, ladies and gentlemen. We must stand up and say no to this and publicly expose these people that are making these decisions and ignoring what this stuff did. That is the bottom line. And the purpose of me live streaming this tonight is to show you that, you know what? Okay, so it took a couple hours out of my evening to come down here and tell these people in a city I don't even live in about what they're doing. And just maybe by the grace of God and the power of Jesus Christ and the will and the influence of the Holy Spirit, maybe somebody will wake up and say, wait a minute, this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare, folks. These 5G millimeter wave systems are weapons. And we have a cabal that seeks to enslave and surveil and destroy the population with this technology. And it is black magic and sorcery and divination masters who are all part of this cabal of bloodthirsty psychopaths that worship Satan, that are behind all of this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the truth, okay? The truth is we are in the darkness before the dawn, and that sun's not going to come up for a while if you all stay asleep. We need all of you to get the word out that 5G is a kill grid. We are being conned. They're rolling this out. They're putting up the cables everywhere. They're getting ready for the antennas to go in your backyard, right outside your bedroom window. I went over what this stuff does, folks. I read it verbatim out of the study from the Soviet Union. Okay? This is a very serious matter. And you know, we've got these lawyers in here and these council members in here, and they got their degrees. They know how to split words and lie to people and go along to get along with the evil agendas of the government. We know that the governments have murdered hundreds of millions of people in the 20th century. And here we are in a technocracy with a bunch of people that refuse to deal with the reality that they're part of something horrible because all they care about is their new car and their pension. That's all they care about. Let me tell you something, folks. There's hundreds of millions of us. Hundreds of millions of us. They could fiber optic all the way to your bedroom wall, folks, and you could plug it in with a Cat 20. They've got the most incredible fiber optic technology. Why do they have to irradiate us? It's because they want to kill us and make us sick and make us subservient and servile so they can sacrifice us to their God that is a bloodthirsty monster that is destined for hell, folks. And those are the facts. Those are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why we are in this mess, because they serve Lucifer, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know that the blue light is Lucifer's light, ladies and gentlemen? Did you know that the enzyme that is found in organisms that create their own bioluminescence. You know, there's these fish that live at the bottom of the ocean where it's really dark and they make their own bluish, whitish light. And do you know that there's an enzyme that they make that makes that light? And do you know what the scientists called this enzyme years ago? Luciferase, folks. That's right. What's the color of the Wi-Fi system being on? It's bluish. It's that magenta color. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, these are facts, okay? This is a satanic agenda run by Satanists, and it's a satanic technocracy that they're setting up. And, you know, you better put your They Live glasses on, folks, because they're all around us. And what you got a witness to tonight was the people in the Hermosa Beach City Council, the city attorney, and all these other guys that are, you know, all part of the go along to get along, stick the LED lights in and put the transmitters everywhere. You got to see who they are. And you got to see them presented with scientific information. And if you got a lawyer that's going to sit there for the city and ignore how this stuff's a weapons grid, then I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. My address is P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. My email address is joeimbriano777@gmail.com. And on the web at wifidangers.com, thefullertoninformer.com. All of these sites, ladies and gentlemen, you got these people in this room right now. Maybe they're watching me on their phones as they're up there ignoring the truth. They are guilty of deploying a weapons system against the residents of Hermosa Beach, folks. By going along with this and not fighting the deployment of these millimeter wave weapons systems, they are guilty of criminal assault, folks. That's once this stuff is up and running, they will be guilty of criminal assault. That's what this boils down to, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I don't know where my buddy Gary's at. That's Gary Galeno from Grindall 61 in there, who spoke right after me, who brought up some very important points about how this is a big con job. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep streaming here. I don't know how much battery I got. But I want to keep the camera rolling for as long as I can to fill you with as much information as possible. You know, the FCC tries to make it seem like that the cities have no choice. The cities have plenty of choices, folks. And the cities got lawyers that can fight. These cities are paying these salaries of these lawyers already. They could use these lawyers to fight, but what do? They want to roll. They want to play because they got paid off, or they want to pay to play because they get invited to the parties where the weird stuff goes on. And you know what I'm talking about. You can't go high up unless you get involved in weird stuff, folks. But I want to tell you something. I'm not involved in weird stuff. I am on fire for the truth and for the promotion of the gospel of Jesus Christ and fighting evil, and to make sure that the gates of hell will not stand against God's people. And I attended this meeting tonight. There was no invocation. There wasn't even a prayer before it started. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, folks. These people, they got a gold tassel around the flag in this godless building, and they're in here making decisions on how they're going to vote this stuff in to hurt people, okay? And we got people up there talking right now. I don't know. I'm going to go back into this room and see if there's any other speakers that possibly have our back here.
We're addressing a lot of our concerns. There are still a few concerns that I just want to highlight. Our outside counsel sent a letter today. One of the big things is, I know in the FCC order, it does state that the criteria must be reasonable and
It's still telecom people in there, you know, just trying to sugarcoat how they're killing everybody, folks.
And published in advance. And I know in the
You know, there's no reason to go to this new technology. The streaming works fine everywhere I go. Heck, I was even in the mountains and the phones were working up there. Why do we need to go to this, folks? Because it's a dirty trick. It's a dirty trick, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. That's right. They want this because, here's the deal. You know, you really want to know why they want this, folks? Because since the beginning of time, the devil always wanted to be omnipotent, knowing everything, and omnipresent, being everywhere at once. Well, you know, forget about David Geffen and the Plimsolls and how everywhere at once was the goal of a Plimsoll, right? And if you look at the color of the cover of that album and the colors that were used in the artwork of the album sleeve and the midnight hour and you know, I mean, look, folks, they have a plan to make their God on par with our Lord and Savior, the Creator. And that is to be omniscient, so they can know everything about everyone. And when the Internet of Things is rolled out, which I don't believe it ever will be, because I believe people like you and I are going to stop this, I believe that is their goal, to have their God have all the information on everybody, on what everybody's doing, what everybody's thinking, what everybody's smoking, what everybody's drinking. That's what they want, folks. They want total surveillance, total command and control, and the 5G systems are going to give them the ability to have massive amounts of bandwidth to deliver the data to these databases for this omniscient satanic control system, as well as omnipresent, because they're going to be able to see everyone and everything at all times, because it's all going to tie in with all the LED cameras, all the smart appliances, all of the Internet of Thing applications are going to give a sense of omnipresent to their God, who is the AI control grid master, the devil himself, folks. That's right. That's right. Where's the rest of the likes on here? Come on, push the likes up. We need to get this. We need to get this thing out there. I know it's been an hour and a half, but ladies and gentlemen, you've got to understand something. This is a very serious problem, and the majority of the people that work for these city governments, or they're involved in these planning departments, or working for these telecom companies, they don't give a crap about the people. All they care about is their job and their money and their cocktail parties. Because if they cared, they wouldn't be going along with this wicked, evil stuff. All right? That's the bottom line. All right, I don't know what's going on inside there. I don't want to go in there and listen to any more of the, the window dressing on the weaponry, but that's about what this is boiling down to. I know Gary Galino from Grindall 61 still in here. Let me see who else is in here talking right now. I mean, I'm hoping there's some of these residents in here that have a brain. Let's see.
Objects that you may have seen up in the air that look like snowshoes. That's what they're called in the industry, snowshoe.
Go get a drink of water. Not too many people up there. Are you going up there? So turn your card in. Huh?
It doesn't help the view or protect. The other way they could put a fiber optic cable is that they can measure, start the cable out, and then when they get to the other pole, make a mark on the cable, so it's just long enough. Drop it down to the ground to a guy in a little top tent. You see those tents in some cities, not so much here, where a guy with a microscope will put the connector on.
Turn your camera back on.
Stick it back up. There's no extra stuff doubled around the guide wire.
It's on.
You may have noticed that some cities have cleaner looking poles than ours, because mostly here they put them around the snowshoes. This 5G allows you, page 3 of the staff report allows you to look at the appearance of the installation. And I'd like to suggest that you give the Public Works Department one additional position, somebody to look at the appearance of each of these installations, and to ask the installers to do them cleanly without the extra material double back and forth, and to remove, as a mitigation, some of the stuff that they already have up there double back and forth. Because user report.
The areas in black are not getting 5G. Look at what is not getting 5G, folks.
30 seconds.
The property value that you get taxes on. And so it's in the city government's interest.
Can you guys see what countries aren't getting 5G?
Less stuff out on the poles so that homes sell for more and you get more property tax. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bethany Guajardo, and I'm here as a concerned citizen about the deployment of this 5G network that we are seeing all over the country. I find it really interesting that you have all of these representatives from these telecom companies making a big case and have the audacity that this is just going to be implemented without any pushback. The damaging health effects of 5G and its clear medical data and of its effects on creating cancer, on creating all kinds of chronic health effects is something that I find odd that you guys wouldn't even question. The fact that the residents here that have spoken only care about how it looks and how it affects your guys' property value is ridiculous to me. The fact that you guys
don't even question how this is going to affect human health on a wide scale, and on top of that, basically give the technology to spy on Americans and taking the Patriot Act to a whole nother level is horrifying. Everybody's dead in here. I don't understand why nobody is sounding the alarm on how dangerous this is. People need to understand what is being implemented on our country, what is being implemented in our systems on human health. You should all be ashamed of yourselves if you do know the effects. And if you don't, then please study up on it, educate yourself, because this is not acceptable. You will get pushed back, and I get that people have pensions, you want to have your 401ks, you want your vacation, you want to have a nice cushy life, but know that this affects thousands of people, if not millions. Please take a stand like what Palm Beach, Florida did and what Seattle did in opting out of 5G. Please push back and recognize that we, as citizens, have a right to push back against all these multinational corporations who have billions of dollars and throw it, your way to different, using lobbyists and representatives trying to act like it's just some great new technology that helps us download our movies faster on Netflix or whatever it is. It's not. JP Morgan once said, there are two reasons a man does something, a good reason and a real reason. The good reason is that we have great new technology that enables us to upload our pictures on Instagram even faster and do live streaming video. Awesome. But you know what? The real reason is we are having an American, an issue of conscience right now. We need to recognize what the U.S. government is doing, and these intelligence secret agencies in the U.S. are using our tax dollars
30 seconds.
to spy on us, to create all kinds of health effects in order to eventually move us into these kill grids, to act like we don't have any say over our own health. And you know what? A great way to offset all this is also just to have simple plans, how not bring in the 5G Wi-Fi. So while you guys try to figure out ways to implement this in the public, we will find ways around this system. We will not accept it without a fight. Thank you.
That girl.
One more, this would be Daniel Corden.
Good evening, everybody. This agenda is being pushed down from the top down, meaning from government and even powers beyond government, down through governmental agencies like the FCC, and then by these telecom companies, and we've already heard all these mouthpieces of all the telecom companies here to push this on us as it's something great and good as a disguise, because of course we need to download a movie so much faster. No different than the paid mouthpieces of the pharmaceutical companies who come in and push their poison pills dressed in nice suits to the doctors, which of course then they push to their clients. Anyhow, many here have already spoken about the dangers of it, and for any of you to make any decisions without looking into this on your own after tonight is despicable and dishonorable, dishonest, and totally violating what you're here to be doing. Now, I believe everyone in life is told the truth at least once, and once you're told the truth, it's up to you what you do from that point on. You can either, take your measly paycheck to be part of this evil agenda and eventually get your eternal residence in a lakefront property at the Lake of Fire, or you can do the right thing. You can make the right decisions. You can look into this on your own. Now, you want to put all these receivers through all these walk streets and do how densely packed this community is. I've been living here my whole life. It's going to fry everybody. Look at the statistics on what it does to animals when they put it here. Plants won't grow near it. I can already feel the effects of this Wi-Fi router right above my head back here. So if you guys don't look into the health concerns that these new weapon systems that these big mouthpieces are pushing, then that's going to be on you. I'm just here to place responsibility on you because the universe just heard me tell you. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I believe we're out of comment cards. Does anyone else in the audience have anything to say? No. Okay, we're going to close public participation. Can I ask Madam City Attorney to address health effects? Something that many people speak about and are concerned about, and an explanation of health.
Here goes the lie from the pit of hell, folks.
Basic level, federal law prohibits the city from regulating based on health effects.
Federal law prohibits the city from defending its citizens from weaponry.
And why do you think that is?
That's a lie.
So if, that is correct, that under federal law, which has been in place since 1996, there are certain limitations on what local authorities can and cannot regulate. There are not a lot of limitations, but some of them do involve your regulation of wireless carriers and of the what they describe in the statute as the environmental effects of RF emissions. So you cannot regulate the service terms and conditions of a wireless carrier, so you can regulate their rates. You also can't regulate what they do with the information that they collect from people who use their service. And then you also cannot regulate the environmental effects of RF emissions because the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, has been given that authority to establish standards.
The FCC is not a healthcare agency. It doesn't have one medical doctor on its payroll, ladies and gentlemen. Are you listening to this?
Is asked that the carrier's proposed wireless facility meets the FCC standards, and that's what we've done.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And there was also a question from Emily from AT&T on clearing up the ordinance DAS versus small cell. Is that something that was already brought to your attention? You'll be able to clarify.
Yeah, we looked at that issue as well, obviously, when we were reviewing the letters this afternoon. And so the definition, the term small cell is not really a technical term. It's a term to describe that a facility has a small coverage area. So a small cell as opposed to a macro cell, right? So it's not a technical term, and all we've done in the ordinance is use that terminology to, and when we define it using the small wireless facility definition in the FCC order. So the FCC order's definition applies. A small cell, it can be a standalone small cell that just connects to the network, or it can be one of a number of small nodes of a distributed antenna system. So from our perspective in drafting, we saw that as we're just using the term small cell, but we're not intending to exclude distributed antenna systems. Distributed antenna systems differ from small cells in that they are connected to each other and operate kind of as one connected with fiber. And we're not saying that those don't apply. We would apply the same definition. So we're using the FCC's definition of small wireless facility. We just call it small cell.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that explanation. I'm going to look to my colleagues to see if we have some discussion.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The quick thing, I don't think it got covered after David Braden brought it up. All the polls, SCE are part of what we can work with, correct? Correct. Okay. Also, you've got do you have any comments you wanted to add about the comments that were made this evening about compliance differences? Or that some things that we talked about compliance to federal regulations were not consistent?
Yeah, I'll handle one point, and then I think Gail has a couple others. There's one comment that the ordinance is a little bit too subjective. And the way the ordinance is set up, there's sort of some general themes for the types of facilities we want to see. Those themes are
All right, folks, so
the design standards.
we're still going. All right, what they got going right now is they're going in, they're talking about how they can't stop it, when in fact that's simply not true. How did Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago neighborhood stop 5G? How has Seattle challenged this? So these people tonight in the city council chamber, regardless of what they do, have been exposed to the truth, ladies and gentlemen. They have been exposed, okay? Now, it is up to us to say no. It is up to us. And yes, I have spoken, folks. I know this is a really long video tonight, and at the beginning, I'll be able to, when this is uploaded, I'll be able to put in the comments and the title you know, when Gary and I spoke tonight, and a couple other people, because, you know, a lot of this meeting tonight was the bureaucrats talking their legalese and, you know, trying to sell each other on what a great job they did concocting this this scheme to kill everybody. I mean, this is a highly densely populated coastal community, Hermosa Beach, California. Really expensive to live here. A lot of congestion, a lot of bodies, a lot of people, not a lot of trees, and an awful lot of structure, an awful lot of high density housing that's going to be going in here. And as the young lady said, they're setting up the kill grids, folks. I've said this over and over again. All I can do is warn you that if they put this stuff on your property, consider it a weapon, folks, because I read you from the scientific study verbatim, the CIA declassified document from the Soviet Union, the effects of millimeter waves on rats and people. All right? This stuff is dangerous. This stuff is a weapon. This stuff is a surveillance grid. This stuff is a kill grid. This stuff is a mind control system. This stuff is part of a eugenics agenda. They can induce illness and various symptoms of illness. At the very core of all illness is mitochondrial disease, and we went into how the oxidation reactions are affected by millimeter waves. We know that millimeter waves affect the mitochondria's ability to produce energy, folks. That is the power supply for every cell in your body. This is Agenda 21, folks. They want us crammed into the kill grids off the land. They don't want us having guns. They want us taking all these vaccines. They want us having all these weird light frequencies at night. They got all these bright headlights and all these caffeinated beverages and all these medications. They want to have everybody smoking dope and drinking all kinds of, you know, toxic sodas and everything. Maybe we can catch up with this gentleman over here who spoke, and he's a Hermosa Beach resident, and maybe we can get his take on what's going on here. So, what's your name for the audience?
How you doing? My name's Danny.
All right, Danny. Danny's a resident of this community. Danny, go ahead and tell people what you know about how they're lying about how they can't stop this. Tell everybody.
Well, they got the paid mouthpieces of the bar corporation after we just heard from the paid mouthpieces of the telecom corporations after we just heard from the paid mouthpieces on the city council. So we're just here basically to place responsibility on these criminals, so when their time comes, they'll have no excuses, because everybody heard us say that. The universe heard us, or what people may call God heard us. So that's the point. That's all I'm here for. I know they're criminals. I already know what they're going to push this, and you know, we can still stop it, but at this level right now, you know, you can see what happens. We get up there, no matter what we say, is just like,
well, that's okay, because they're the ones that are going to have to live with themselves, and they're the ones that are going to have to look at themselves in the mirror, and they're the ones that are going to have to live with what happens to their children and their parents and their grandparents, how they're all going to end up in nursing homes with organ failure and brain damage and Alzheimer's and cancer and everything else. And all they're going to look at in the mirror is a wrinkled shell with their purse collection, and that's really a shame. It's amazing. So you said that when the FCC's Telecom Act tied their hands, that's a lie.
Of course it is. I mean, why would we be here discussing it? Why do they have to vote? Why would they need compliance for everything? That's how the spiritual war works. They need your compliance. They're only going to give you all the carrots, and then there's the one right path. They give you a million incorrect paths and disguise them all with candies and colors and whatever you want, but we still have to comply with everything. That's how it all works, because
why don't you hold this on? I got to hook up the battery. Go ahead and keep talking. I got to keep the charger going here because we're running out of juice. Yeah, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Oh, yeah.
So go ahead and keep talking while I plug this in. I'm sorry. So Danny, go ahead and continue. So what do you think this is all about with this 5G stuff?
Well, it's a kill grid, bottom line. They want to depopulate the planet, and they're not going to drop bombs on our heads. They're just going to kill us with invisible frequencies. So all these people who, we got to keep our guns. That's actually another psyop. They're not going to take our guns. What are you going to do? Shoot the 5G frequencies in the air when they're frying you to death? It won't even be an issue.
You know, Danny, I think the biggest battle.
I'm obviously pro, any weapon to defend yourself.
I think the battle that we face is awareness of that. This truly is. We'll to a better spot. We got a bad connection here. Because
we're inside the bricks.
Yeah.
That's why I came here, because I'm protected from that.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so
I feel it right away.
All right, so let me make sure the battery's charging. All right, so I think the majority of the battle that we face is
I'll get that.
Is one of information. People think this is just another technological advancement, ladies and gentlemen, and what they don't realize is that it is indeed a weapon. It is indeed a weapon, folks. And so I think, Dan, once people understand that this is a weapon, that maybe people will wake up and do something about what is happening. And I know this. I have a home, and if they put this stuff on my property, I'm not going to let them come on my property to install it. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to lock them out of my yard, and I'm going to defend my property, and I'm going to treat them as an invader and a burglar and an assailant.
Absolutely.
Because putting this stuff in my yard is not necessary. The phone works fine. They can hook up a wire to my house from the cable box on the pole. They don't need to be putting a weapons grid in my backyard when I just read from 41 years ago what this stuff does. They know what this stuff does. I don't know if you were here tonight, but I handed them a copy of a CIA declassified document from the Soviet Union on the effects of millimeter wave radiation, and I handed it to the city clerk, and it was entered into the public record here tonight at the Hermosa Beach City Council meeting. So how long have you lived in this community?
I actually don't even live here anymore, but I've been around this. I inherited some property just in a couple cities away, but I've lived here enough of my life.
So you're a South Bay resident,
Yes.
you're a SoCal resident, and
Yes.
they're going to put this everywhere. It's not just going to be in Hermosa Beach. Tonight was just a night for us to put more public officials on notice, as I hope you will, and I hope all of you in the audience will. I know this has been a long video. I mean, this is a 2-hour stream, folks. It's a very, very long stream, and you know, there's a lot of information out there on this. We cannot, like Dan said, we cannot let these people get away with this.
Exactly.
This is criminal behavior. I went on record tonight. and I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry. I have a bachelor's degree in biological science from UCI. I am not some freak spouting nonsense, folks. I read verbatim from scientific studies showing what millimeter waves do to cells, organisms, organs, and rats and people. And it was handed to a city council here tonight, and they bring up these it looks like a group of young women, I believe they're attorneys for the city, trying to say that they can't stop this. That's a bunch of nonsense. Seattle's fighting it. Donald Trump's neighborhood isn't getting it.
Look what the Empower movement did in Hawaii.
Look what the Empower movement did in Hawaii. I mean,
I should have taken an extra 20 seconds to tell them our next step is to get affidavits against all of you from all the citizens.
Okay, let's talk about that's Josh Del Sol's group, and we need to plug that. That's the Empower movement, and basically, that's why I mentioned tonight in the meeting the Admiralty law flag means nothing, because we're going to go after these people on that level.
Right. It's basically whatever the mob wants, that's what the mob gets. If we all comply, it'll stop instantly. This is a spiritual war. They need our compliance, or else the karma would be on them if they forced it on us. If we say, okay, yeah, put it in, then they don't have the karma because we accepted it, you know? I mean, they'll get theirs in the end, but we're compliant in our own slavery and our own demise and not saying anything about it. That's the point.
So we need to file affidavits against every individual in this room tonight.
Yeah, every council member and every one of the city employees, whether they work for the bar corporation or whoever the hell they're a mouthpiece of, all of them. That's what needs to be done.
So that would be the next phase, is a notice of liability and an affidavit filed against all of these individuals. Because we have documented scientifically and medically that what they have voted on here tonight is weaponry. And it is an intent. They have basically tacitly admitted their intent to harm the residents of this community by ignoring this information and by going ahead with a yes vote on the ordinance. Now, out of this room now, we have Gary Galeno from Grindall 61 and a couple other people from the public here tonight. Yeah. And Gary, can you want to plug that back in? Gary, can you tell us what they ended up voting? Did they pass part one?
Not only did they vote for it, but the guy that wasn't here and not on the conference call, they voted for him as well, so it went 5-0.
It went 5-0. So now we have a situation where, why don't we loop that wire over the top so it's not hanging? Yeah, there you go. Take some stress off of it. So what we have on our hands here, folks, is a situation where they have now just heaped a tremendous amount of liability on themselves because they're in receipt of the scientific literature as well as a trade publication in my hand that shows the inventors of this wicked technology aren't putting it in their own country, folks. So, do any of you have any other comments here tonight before we cut this feed off? Because it's been a long, arduous journey for the audience. Anybody have anything else to say?
Thanks for watching. Share this with everybody, and they should be scared of us because this is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. These people belong in jail. They belong in a bankruptcy court. They belong in receivership on the short end of a very paltry paycheck, perhaps washing cars for a living when this thing is all over, because these people need to lose their homes, their jobs, their pensions, and their freedom for what they're doing. Ladies and gentlemen, we handed them scientific information that clearly show what radio frequency emissions in the millimeter wave spectrum do from 41 years ago. And these were the days of infancy in terms of the research. You don't think they've gotten this thing down to a science? They certainly have, ladies and gentlemen. They've been importing 180 IQ students and setting them up with bed and breakfast scholarships for 41 years since that Soviet Union research was done and uncovered by the CIA. And let me tell you something, all these 180 IQ kids in the schools working in all these programs at MIT and Harvard and Berkeley and all of these government think tank operations, as Janet Napolitano, the ex-head of Homeland Security, is the president of the Regents of the University of California. We got the head of the Gestapo running academia in the state of California, and I can assure you that is no accident, ladies and gentlemen. We are not going to consent, we are not going to allow these people to continue to roll over us like we're some doormat in North Korea that's been starved into emaciation. We are Americans, we're going to stand up, we're going to wake up, we're going to tell everybody we know about what this stuff can do. And I summed it up, I read you those 3 pages, I know I read it fast, I know there's some big words in there, but any of you who are medical doctors who ignore everything I said tonight, you're going straight to hell. Because you swore an oath before Almighty God, and you swore an oath to take care of people, your fellow man, and you people out there in the medical field know full well everything I said tonight and what those symptoms and effects are, and those are from 41 years ago. All you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is do your homework. Tell everybody you know to WIGIG, 5gdangers.com. You can go to that website. You can go to Grindall61 on YouTube. My friend Gary's right here. Another brave soul.